Tife stared at the phone screen, the words echoing in her head. Her hands trembled as she replayed the clip, hoping, praying it was a bad dream. But there it was, his voice loud and clear, followed by laughter from the podcast hosts. The betrayal stunk deeper than any insult she had ever faced. What would you do if your husband went on a live podcast and said your VJ smells like fish? Please drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's dive into the story. When the news broke that Femi had said something about his wife on the popular podcast, the entire neighborhood of Obalende couldn't keep quiet. Femi, the man who everyone respected for his calm and responsible nature, had made a shocking statement that left tongues wagging. It all started on a sunny Saturday afternoon when Femi appeared on Talk Your Mind, a trending online show where people share their raw opinions. Tell us something funny about your marriage, the host Bayo asked Femi, grinning from ear to ear. The question seemed harmless at first, but Femi leaned back in his chair, rubbed his hands together and laughed awkwardly. Well, he began. I love my wife, but sometimes... He paused, his face glowing under the studio lights. Sometimes her VJ smells like fish. The laughter in the studio was loud and uncontrollable. Even Femi chuckled, clearly thinking he had made a harmless joke. Bayo's jaw dropped, and the audience online went wild. Comments flooded a live stream. Did he just say that about his wife? Or more, Femi has no respect for his wife. Sure, this man is okay. So that beautiful woman's VJ smells like fish. By the time the podcast ended, the clip of Femi's statement was already trending across social media platforms. People tagged his wife Tife in the comments, eager to see her reaction. Tife was at her salon when she got the first notification. Her best friend Amaka barged into the shop with her phone in the hand. Tife, have you seen what Femi said about you? Amaka's voice was sharp, her face filled with concern. What is it? Tife asked calmly, unaware of the storm brewing. Amaka handed her the phone. The clip played and Tife watched Femi's words. Her face remained unreadable. The other stylists and customers in the shop paused, waiting for her reaction. Are you not going to say anything? Amaka asked. Tife smiled faintly. Let him come home first. That evening, Femi walked into the house, unaware of the chaos he had caused. He dropped his bag and greeted Tife, who was sitting quietly in the living room, flipping through a magazine. Good evening, babe, he said cheerfully, bending to kiss her forehead. Good evening, she replied. Femi noticed something different about her attitude. Normally, Tife would chat about her day or tease him, but tonight, she was unusually quiet. Everything's okay? He asked. Tife closed the magazine and looked at him directly. Femi, what did you say about me on that podcast today? Femi's heart skipped a beat. He scratched his head nervously. Oh, that? It was just a joke, Tife, nothing serious. A joke? So you thought it was funny to go on a podcast and tell the whole world that your wife's private bath smells like fish? Femi shifted uncomfortably, realizing he might have crossed a line. Tife, come on. You know I didn't mean it like that. People joke about these things all the time on shows like that. It wasn't personal. Tife leaned back on her chair, studying him with an intensity that made Femi's confidence shrink. Okay, Femi, no problem. I'll handle it. That was the moment Femi began to feel uneasy. Tife's calmness wasn't comforting, it was chilling. The next morning, Tife didn't speak much. She went about her normal activities, humming softly while preparing breakfast. Femi, trying to lighten the mood, attempted to make conversations, but she responded with brief, polite answers. After breakfast, Tife disappeared into their room for hours. When she came out, she was dressed to kill. She wore a fitted red gown that hugged her cuffs. Her makeup was flawless, and she had on her favorite high heels. "Where are you going?" Femi asked. "Oh, I have a few errands to run," Tife said nonchalantly, grabbing her car keys. Femi wanted to ask more questions, but something about her tone stopped him. Later that evening, Femi's phone began buzzing non-stop. Curious, he picked it up to see multiple tags and messages on Instagram. Tife had posted a video. In the video, she was in her salon, standing confidently in front of the camera. Her tone was measured, her expression cool. "Good afternoon, everyone. I've seen the comments, the jokes and the memes about my husband's statements on Talk Your Mind podcast. While I could have responded angrily, I choose to educate instead." She smiled slightly before continuing. "First, let me clarify something. No woman should be shamed publicly, especially not by her husband. What Femi said was wrong, but I won't dwell on that. Instead, I would like to share some tips on feminine hygiene and how both men and women can work together to maintain intimacy in their relationships." What followed was a calm yet detailed explanation about hygiene, communication and mutual respect in marriage. Tife's intelligence left viewers speechless. Within hours, the video went viral. Comments flooded in. Queen Tife, so grateful. She didn't even insult him. This woman is a goddess. Femi messed up, but his wife handled it like a pro. Femi faces the heat. Femi, on the other hand, wasn't having a good day. His friends, colleagues, and even his family bombarded him with calls. "Femi, what were you thinking when you said that nonsense?" His best friend Kunle asked over the phone. "Guy, it was a joke," Femi said, already regretting his actions. "Thank your stars Tife handled it well. You're lucky she's not the type to scatter your life online," Kunle added before hanging up. At home, Femi tried to apologize, but Tife wasn't ready to discuss it. "Let's leave it for now," she said simply, leaving him feeling more guilty than ever. For the next few days, Tife was unusually busy. She left early, came back late, and always looked radiant. People in the neighborhood whispered about her newfound glow. One evening, Femi scrolled through Twitter. He saw something that made his jaw drop. Tife had been invited to a popular TV show to discuss relationships and respect in marriage. "She's blowing up because of me?" he muttered, both amazed and simply annoyed. When Tife got home that night, Femi couldn't hold back. "Babe, why didn't you tell me about the TV interview?" Tife smiled, setting her bag down. "Oh, it's nothing serious. Just a chance to share some thoughts on healthy marriages. You know, thanks to your podcast, people want to hear my opinion now." Femi could feel the yab in her voice, but he stayed quiet. Unknown to Femi, Tife wasn't done yet. She had something else planned, something that would leave everyone in shock. The day of another TV interview arrived. Tife looked stunning on screen, answering questions with confidence. But as the interview came to an end, the host asked her one final question. If you could say one thing to your husband right now, what would it be? Tife paused, her eyes sparkling with mischief. I would tell him, stay tuned for what's coming next. The audience erupted into laughter. But Tife's words carried a weight that Femi couldn't ignore. When Femi got home that evening, he found a large gift-wrapped box on the dining table. Tife was nowhere to be found. Curious, he opened the box to find several items. A pack of men's deodorant. A pamphlet titled How to Communicate Respectively in Marriage. A handwritten note that simply said, let's see who can play this game better. Femi's heart pounded as he realized that Tife wasn't just playing along, she was outsmarting him. The next morning, Tife was up before Femi. She prepared breakfast as though nothing was amiss. Femi sat at the dining table, nervously picking at his food. The mysterious buzz from the night before had shocked him, and her calmness now only added to his anxiety. Are we okay, Tife? He asked. Tife smiled, pouring herself some tea. Of course, darling. Why wouldn't we be? Her tone was light, almost playful, but Femi wasn't fooled. He decided it was best to tread carefully for now. Later that afternoon, while Femi was at work, his phone rang. It was Kunle, his best friend. Femi, are you alright? Kunle asked. What kind of question is that? Femi responded, already irritated. Because your wife has turned you into a trending topic again, Kunle exclaimed. Confused, Femi opened Twitter. His mouth fell open as he saw a new post from Tife's account. It was a short video of her walking confidently into a posh hotel lobby, accompanied by the caption, sometimes you don't explain yourself, you just glow and let the world wonder. The video had already racked up thousands of likes and retweets, with comments like, Tife is winning every day, queen behavior. This is how you slap back without saying a word. I hope Mr. Femi knows he's losing this battle. But how can this beautiful woman's VJ smell like fish? Some men, sha. Femi felt a knot in his stomach. What was she doing at a hotel? Who was she meeting? When Tife returned home that evening, Femi couldn't hold back. Where were you today? Tife raised an eyebrow. I had a few meetings, she replied casually. At a hotel? She paused, then smiled. Yes, at a hotel. Is there a problem? Femi struggled to find the right words. You know how it looks, Tife. People are talking. Oh, now you care about how things look? Did you think about that before you went on that podcast and humiliated me? Femi had no response. He knew he was walking on thin ice. A week later, Tife announced that she was hosting a dinner for a few friends and family members. Femi was surprised, but decided it might be a chance to patch things up. That evening, their house was filled with laughter and chatter. Tife played the perfect hostess, charming everyone with her grace. But as the guests settled down to eat, Tife stood up to make a toast. To love, respect and honesty. And she began, raising her glass. Then she smiled directly at Tife, and to the lesson we learn along the way. Everyone clapped, but Femi felt uneasy. He couldn't shake the feeling that Tife had something planned. The next day, Femi's worst fears came true. Tife announced on her Instagram page that she was launching a new podcast called the Clapback Chronicles. The first podcast was titled, When Your Husband Talks Too Much. The internet exploded. Femi, your wife has used you to become an Instagram celebrity. Smart moves. One of his friends teased him at work. She's taking her revenge to another level, Kunle texted, followed by laughing emojis. Femi couldn't believe it. Tife had flipped the narrative using the same platform that had embarrassed her to elevate herself. That evening, Tife handed Femi an envelope. "What's this?" he asked nervously. "Open it and see," she replied with a sweet smile. Inside was a single piece of paper. It was an invitation to the live recording of her podcast's first episode. The event was happening in 2 days, and Femi was listed as a special guest. "Tife, what is this?" he asked. "Just come," she said. "You will enjoy it." Femi's mind raced. What was she planning? Was this her way of humiliating him publicly too? Or was it something else entirely? The day of the live recording arrived. The venue was packed with people, and the energy in the room was electric. Femi sat backstage, sweating nervously as he waited for his cue to join Tife on stage. When it was time, he walked out to applause. Tife greeted him warmly, her smile as radiant as ever. "Welcome, darling," she said. The audience laughed, sensing the tension between them. As the show began, Tife addressed the elephant in the room. "Many of you know why we are here today," she said. "Sometimes in marriages, we make mistakes, but what matters is how we handle them." Femi held his breath, waiting for the hammer to drop. But instead of attacking him, Tife turned to the audience and said, "Let's talk about forgiveness. Let's talk about love that survives even the hardest moments." The audience erupted into applause. But Femi wasn't relieved. He knew Tife wasn't done yet. Just as the applause died down, Tife looked directly at Femi. "And now, for the final surprise of the night," she began. Femi's heart pounded. Tife reached under her seat and pulled out a small box. "Femi," she said, "this is for you." The audience leaned forward, holding their breath. "What's in the box?" the audience asked. Femi stared at the small box in Tife's hand. It was beautifully wrapped in gold paper, with a delicate bow tied on top. The audience were completely silent, their eyes darting between the couple on stage. Femi hesitated, but Tife smiled sweetly, holding the box out to him. "Go on, darling, open it," she said, her tone both inviting and commanding. With shaky hands, Femi untied the bow and removed the wrapping paper. Inside was another box, this one made of polished wood with a tiny lock. "Tife, what is this?" he asked. Tife leaned back on her chair, crossing her legs elegantly. "Patience, my darling. Keep going." Femi fiddled with the tiny lock, which clicked open easily. Inside the wooden box was another smaller box, this one made of metal. The audience chuckled nervously, and Femi's palm began to sweat. Is this a joke? His frustration was beginning to show. "Why don't you find out?" Tife said. With no other choice, Femi opened the metal box. Inside was a folded piece of paper. He unfolded it slowly, his eyes scanning through the text. His face went pale. "What is it?" Femi froze, unable to speak. Tife reached over and took the paper from his trembling hands. "Shall I read it to you?" she asked. Before he could respond, she unfolded the paper and began reading aloud. "Dear Femi, This is a reminder of the life we promised each other. A life of honesty, respect and love. When you decided to air our private matters in public, you broke that promise. But I am not here to humiliate you. Instead, I want to give you one last chance to make things right. Included with this letter is a list of everything I've done for you over the years. Sacrifices, compromises, and moments where I chose our love over my pride. I want you to remember who I am, Femi. And more importantly, who you are to me. You still have a choice to rebuild this trust or to watch it crumble forever. The room went dead silent. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Tife finished reading the letter. The list she referred to wasn't included, but the weight of her words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Femi swallowed hard, his eyes darting around the room. He felt exposed, like every person there could see into his deepest corners of his soul. Tife leaned forward. Femi, what will it be? Femi took a deep breath and leaned into the microphone. Tife, I made a mistake. I was stupid, selfish and careless. I embarrassed you and our family. The audience listened intently, some nodding in approval, while others exchanged skeptical glances. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Femi continued, but I'm begging for it. I love you, and I promise to spend the rest of my life proving it. Tife didn't respond immediately. Instead, she let the tension simmer, her eyes scanning the room as if she were weighing her next move carefully. Finally, she leaned forward, her lips close to the microphone. Femi, I believe in forgiveness, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. The audience erupted in laughter, cheering and clapping widely. But just as Femi began to feel relieved, Tife raised her hands to quiet the crowd. I'm willing to move forward, she continued, but only on one condition. Femi's heart sank. What condition? He asked. Tife's smile widened. You'll find out in the next episode of Clapback Chronicles. The room exploded with laughter, applause and shouts of encouragement. The camera zoomed in on Femi's stunned expression as Tife gracefully stood up and waved to the crowd. Thank you all for coming. Her voice filled with warmth. And don't forget to tune in next week to see what happens. The screen went blank and the words to be continued flashed across the screen's backdrop. Femi sat frozen in his chair, his mind racing. Tife had taken control of the narrative, and he had no idea what was coming next. What would her condition be? Would their marriage survive this storm? Or had Tife planned something even more shocking? The next week arrived with overwhelming anticipation. Social media was ablaze with theories about what Tife's condition could be. Some speculated she would demand a public apology, while others believed she might file for a divorce on the show. Femi spent the week in silence, avoiding friends, family, and even Tife. She, on the other hand, acted as though everything was normal. She cooked his favorite meals, laughed at his jokes, and even reminded him to iron his shirt for work. But beneath, Femi could sense a storm brewing. When the time for the next episode of Clapback Chronicles came, the studio was packed to capacity. A new host assisted Tife that day. The host was clearly enjoying the popularity already. She opened the show with excitement. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Last week, we witnessed an unforgettable moment when Tife left all of us hanging. Tonight, we finally find out what her condition is. The crowd roared in anticipation. Tife and Femi walked into the stage holding hands. Femi looked tensed, while Tife seemed completely at ease. They sat down and the host wasted no time. Tife, the world has been waiting. What's the condition? Tife smiled sweetly and turned to Femi. My darling husband, I've decided that if we are going to rebuild our marriage, it has to start with humility and honesty. Femi nodded quickly, eager to agree. Of course, anything you want. Tife leaned closer. Good. My condition is simple. You will go back to Talk Your Mind podcast next week. Femi blinked, confused. Why? What about? Tife smiled. To tell the world the truth. Not just about me, but about yourself, your flaws, your mistakes, and the lesson you have learned. I want you to be as open and vulnerable as you expect others to be. The audience fell silent, followed by a wave of applause. Femi looked like he had been punched in the stomach. You want me to? Yes, Tife said firmly. You will go live, just like you did before, and share your truth. No excuses, no jokes, just raw honesty. The host grinned. Wow, Tife, that's a bold condition. Femi, are you up for this challenge? Femi glancing at the audience. He knew he didn't have a choice. Yes, he said quietly, I'll do it. The following week, Femi sat in front of a microphone in a small recording studio of the same show. His hands were clammy, and his heart raced as the countdown began. When the signal to start came, he took a deep breath and spoke. Hello everyone, this is Femi. And today, I want to tell you the truth about myself. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I've always been a man who hides behind jokes. I thought making others laugh would cover up my insecurities, but it only made things worse. I hurt my wife Tife, the woman who stood by me through thick and thin, by disrespecting her in public. That was wrong. Femi went back to talk about his struggles with pride, his fear of vulnerability, and his realization that Tife deserved better. He even shared stories of how she has supported him during his lowest moments, like when he lost his job and she worked twice as hard in her salon to keep the family afloat. By the end of the podcast, his voice was shaky, but his message was clear. I'm not a perfect man, but I'm learning. And I want to thank Tife for giving me the chance to make things right. The podcast went viral. Listeners praised Femi for his honesty and vulnerability, and many commented on how it inspired them to reflect on their own relationships. When Femi returned home that evening, Tife was waiting for him with a warm smile. You did well, my darling, pulling him into a hug. Femi exhaled deeply, relief washing over him. Thank you for giving me this chance, he whispered. Tife pulled back, looking into his eyes. This is just the beginning, Femi. Trust takes time to rebuild, but I believe in us. In the months that followed, Femi and Tife worked on their marriage. They attended counseling sessions, went on dates, and found new ways to communicate. Femi and Tife continued the podcast, using it as a platform to discuss personal growth and relationship lessons. From a situation that would have broken families, they became couples that people looked up to. They became the latest internet sensation, and to many, they believe the whole drama may have been a way to go viral and to break into the social media space. But their story was clear. It became a beacon of hope for couples struggling with trust and communication. Femi learned that respect and humility were the cornerstones of love, while Tife showed the world the power of forgiveness. Their journey wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was enough.